Welcome to Finding Home Healing. I'm your host, Sadie. I believe you were born with a light that guides you to your higher self and most passionate life. But for many of us, it's been extinguished or lost. My mission is to help you find your way back home to that light so that you can love deeper, live in your power, and truly thrive. For those lost or lonely souls, welcome home. Welcome to the Finding Home Healing podcast. In this episode, we are going to dive deeper into one of the belief buckets, the religious exile. If you've gotten a chance to listen to the belief bucket overview episode, you will have learned in there whether you fit in this bucket or not. But if you haven't listened to that episode, that's totally okay. You will be finding out more about what that bucket really means and if you fit in it or not. I'm going to be describing it in great detail today, and I'm going to be giving you some steps to take to help you if you are in this bucket. I've continued to reiterate this over and over again. One of my deepest passions and I believe missions in life is to really help people that are lost and lonely souls find the light, the power, and the love within themselves and come back home to themselves. I find a lot of those lost and lonely souls fit into one of these buckets that are not talked about. They're something that I don't think that a lot of people know even exist. And again, in that other episode, I talk about those three rare buckets: the religious exile, the religious survivor, and the soul seeker. So this episode, we're going to dive deeper into the religious exile bucket. Okay, so what is a religious exile? These are folks who were raised with a type of religion or belief system, or that they came upon it later in life, and they were a part of that belief system or religion. In the US, it's more often than not some form of Judaism or Christianity, but it could be honestly any belief system. You know, some of the bigger ones obviously would be Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam. Those are like the main, what we would call the main religions, but there's lots of other subsidiaries. So any belief system that you were a part of, but you felt exiled from that belief system or religion, either by choice or by happening. And what I mean by that is by choice, like you have not really felt in alignment with that belief system any longer. Maybe there's parts of it that you feel really resonate as true to your core, but there's some of it that you question and that just doesn't fully add up to you. That's what I kind of mean by choice, is that you've kind of evolved or you've had experiences through life that have shown you other beliefs or other ways of being that you're like, that seems like it's true, but this doesn't fit in with the box that I've been a part of or that I grew up with. How did I reconcile that? And when I say that you can be exiled by happenstance or by happening, that is like, let's say you went to an event and you had a spiritual experience that you couldn't really explain or you couldn't make sense of it, and it changed what you thought or believed was real, and it didn't fit into your old belief system. That becomes very confusing and jarring and like, whoa, what just happened? You can sometimes feel very unsettled or chaotic inside yourself. Or maybe you have done like a meditation, or you've done something outside of the box that you are normally used to, and it's given you a new perspective on things and you don't really know what to do with it. Religious exiles, they may have this experience where they feel like they're misfits, like they maybe used to be a part of a community or a church or a belief system, and now they are kind of in no man's land because they've got all these different floating around ideas and potential beliefs, or they're on this teeter-totter, like, what do I believe? Am I in this world? Am I like a Christian, or am I a believer in New Age and past lives and psychics and mediums and reincarnation? It's like, whoa, this is really, really confusing, because in a lot of ways, some people think that you can't be both. It's like you're either Christian, where you believe that you have the one life and Jesus died on the cross and saved you from your sins, and the Bible is the word of God, period, and you never question it. And then there's this other camp. These aren't the only two options, but there's another camp where it's like, no, there's actually books that have been removed from the Bible, and like the Book of Enoch, and there's the Council of Nicaea where they took reincarnation out of the Bible, and that's very skeptical, or suspicious. Why would that have happened? And the Romans and the Catholics, they've kind of controlled Christianity. And if you're an Orthodox Christian, then you obviously know how many iterations of Christianity there have been, and you believe in other things than the Catholics do. And even within Christianity, there's so many different branches, and it's like, you guys, this is so confusing. Like, what is really true here? So religious exiles are really having this experience of like, what in the world is going on? Why are all of these different religions so different? And why do I only have to choose one or the other? And I'm only fitting into one or the other, and I can't believe in Jesus and reincarnation at the same time. And I can't believe that the Bible is legit, and also that, psychics are legit at the same time, and that, I want to see a tarot reader, but I should go to confession instead because that's the sinning. It's like, oh my gosh, this is really, really crazy and confusing. So if you're a religious exile, you might have this experience where it's like you go to church because you think it's the right thing to do, and it's what you're used to or what you think you should be doing. But when you're there, you're having this experience of like, this is rubbing me the wrong way, or this isn't fully resonating with me, or this message isn't landing. Like, there's more to the story. There's more to myself. There's more to spirituality in general. This isn't the end all be all. Like, this isn't all that there is. I don't feel like some of these things I'm being told are actually really true. And sometimes maybe it feels like there's an agenda behind these things, but this is supposed to be church, and I'm supposed to believe and have faith wholeheartedly and not question. And that gets very, very confusing. Being a religious exile, I would say the most overarching feeling that we can relate to is like confusion. And I mean, you can have all sorts of feelings and experiences, but I can also relate to being a religious exile because I've been in this bucket, and I have often felt like there's something more to the story that I'm not being told, and not everything that I see, hear, or believe exists fits into the box that religion has given me. And it's made me afraid to question things in the past. So religious exiles can have this experience, right, where they maybe have had experiences where they see, feel, or hear things that they believe exist, but it doesn't fit into the box that they've been given through their religion, and so they're afraid to question it. Perhaps they're afraid of judgment, or they're afraid of being outcasted, or to be looked down upon, or even worse, to be punished or to suffer consequences for having this idea or of wanting to question things. It's been a theme in history where if you question the system, you get punished, right? Like the Salem witch trials was an example. The Crusaders were an example. There's a lot of historical reference points to when you were not willing to accept the system and what was being forced upon you, then you were in danger. You were not accepted. You were exiled and punished, and you had consequences. And so I can appreciate that being a religious exile is very scary. It can feel very risky, and it can feel lonely, and like you don't want anybody to know that you are this way, especially if you're one of the exiles that's like still kind of doing the thing where you go to church and, you know, you go through the motions and you say that you believe in God, but it's like, do you really? Do you even do anything that makes it such that it proves through your actions that you believe in God? And it's just a wild, wild west out there. Religious exiles often also have this feeling of being lost or alone to a certain degree, like nothing and no one is getting you or matching with you. You're a misfit and you don't know why. You're really looking for some source of comfort, community, validation, guidance, and solace. and to be reassured that there's nothing wrong with you, that you're not doing anything wrong or bad, and that exploring or even believing things outside of the religion box doesn't make you a bad person or mean that you deserve punishment or judgment. So I'm really speaking to those people here today. If that resonates with you, the rest of our discussion today is going to be really, really helpful for you. I also want to caveat here just really quickly that I have been a religious exile. I've been in all these buckets. I've mentioned that before. And I have learned to be a healthy religious exile, and I call myself an observer. So a lot of people have actually, once I've finally opened up about my beliefs, a lot of people have been admired or have admired me for the fact that I can hold multiple belief systems all at once. Due to the fact that I consider myself this religious exile, where like I was raised Catholic, and then I had a lot of religious trauma. I went through the bucket of being a religious survivor, which is another episode if you'd like to listen to that, if that resonates with you. And then I healed that religious survivor part of myself, that from that religious trauma, spiritual trauma, and I came back into being a believer. I got rebaptized. I was a part of the church. I was having all of these spiritual healing experiences. I was like tight with Jesus. We were good, and we still are. But like at that time, I let go of my anger with God and with everyone in the Catholic Church and everyone who I felt really hurt me and wronged me and betrayed me, and like really let go of that like victim mentality as it related to religion. And then as I was really in this believer stage, it was really beautiful for me. But then as my journey would have it, different parts of me kept coming forward, like the part of me that still believes in reincarnation, and the part of me that believes that the Book of Enoch was a part of the original Bible, and yet it's not anywhere in there, and that the original Orthodox Christian Bible has many more chapters to it than the traditional King James version of the Bible. And it's like, why did that happen? And in all of my studies of history and of theology, cosmology, philosophy, it's made me have a different viewpoint and perspective on the Bible and on the creation story and how and why we even came here, and the fact that I believe that I am the way that I am, which might come out here eventually, but I'm more of a spiritual person than just strictly a Christian person. I still believe in Jesus. I believe that he was the Savior that saved us from our sins and did all of these wonderful things. And I'm still a spiritual person. So as a religious exile, I call myself an observer. And I by no means am here to offend anybody. I am not here to tell you that you have to believe any certain thing that I believe, or that you have to be just like me. I deeply, deeply appreciate and respect each and every one of you for whatever it is that you believe. And in many of my episodes, I even say that like I really admire really congruent and fully and aligned believers. Like when they believe something so wholeheartedly, I really admire that. I think it's really, really beautiful and really helpful and really powerful. So I have nothing against that whatsoever. I'm just here to share all of these different phases that I've been through, because I imagine a lot of you either are in these phases, have been, or will be. Okay. So I don't strictly identify strictly or dogmatically with any one ideology or belief or religion. However, I don't de-identify with them either. I'm not a pantheist. I don't necessarily believe that all religions are the same and they all lead to the same path or outcome. I do believe that there is danger to some of the beliefs within different religions, and that some are better than others, and that there is a hierarchy of things that are more true and less true. So I have a set of beliefs that I am very congruent with now, and I allow flexibility for myself to evolve and to evolve as a person, to allow new information to come to me and new insights to be had, and like new revelations. So even in the life of this whole podcast, I might have different perspectives as time goes by, because I give myself permission as a religious exile, which I'll get into later is important that religious exiles need. I give myself permission to be able to have a belief system that I feel solid and rooted in and congruent with, and be flexible. Okay? One of the problems that I observe in religion is that in some ways it's like giving someone a pill and saying, here, take this pill, without telling them why, what it is, what it's going to do for them, or even if they want it or need it. And so as kids, we're raised with a belief system, which I want to make sure I caveat, I think is important. I think that children should be raised with a belief system that allows them to have a healthy conscious and unconscious mind set up to where they believe there is a benevolent source of all power, the creator of all, a higher power that they can rely on, they can trust, that loves them unconditionally, that is always there for them, that will celebrate their triumphs and will hold them through their pain and suffering. Like, I think that that is really, really important for children. Concurrently with that, I also believe that it's important to allow there to be exploration and allow there to be a process of inquiry where every single individual person gets to go through a process, if they so desire, to really feel into what is resonating in their core. Because your core is the deepest, most part of who you are. And I personally have a belief that that core is light, and that light, regardless of what color of light it is still a reflection of the all that is. So the people that have a dogmatic approach that is like, this is the way that it is, and that means all these other things are wrong, I can appreciate that and I respect their perspective. And my approach is that I believe every single person has a connection to the power of all, and that it is reflective in this light that exists inside each one of us, and that sometimes that light is turned off, or sometimes it's inaccessible, or sometimes it's been damaged or broken, which is what a religious survivor experiences. And sometimes it's maybe dull, or it's like lost, right? That's what a religious exile would experience. And so I want to encourage the exploration of finding the light within yourself. It's not necessarily finding the religion or finding the correct or the perfect belief system. It's, what are you feeling when you are connected to the highest and best version of you? What are you feeling when you connect to unconditional love and support and togetherness? Like, what is that for you? I really feel like sometimes the religion layer makes people feel stuck. And when they're trying to explore, learn, and grow in that inflexible belief system, it creates this dynamic where they don't like it and they're lost. And it results in that feeling of being a lost and lonely soul. And that's what we want to really avoid here. So in my personal, professional opinion and in my personal experience, I think that that's problematic. I think that our ability to have a core belief system that resonates with us and the freedom to explore is what helps us be happy, healthy, wealthy humans. Okay, so let's move into what religious exiles need. As you can tell, I have been very familiar with being a religious exile, and I have found it nauseating how I have to flip back and forth between belief systems in order to feel like I fit in. So going back to what I was saying earlier, like if I'm in the Christian belief system and I'm going to church and I'm talking to people there and they're super gung-ho, which is great, and they're singing their praises and their hands are up in the air and it's awesome and amazing, I want to be able to like fit in there and be like, yeah, I feel it too. Like I'm with you. Like I love Jesus. Jesus is the best. But then there's the part of me that's like kind of like sad because I also have another part of me that's like, but like aliens exist and reincarnation's real and I can remember my past lives and all these different things like in the New Age, and I'm a medium and that's not acceptable in this like Christian doctrine, and that's really sad because that's a big part of who I am, and so that requires that I have to completely leave and neglect that part of myself, and that's just sad. And so then I swing to the other pendulum side and I'm like, great, let's go to a new moon circle and let's read our tarot cards and study numerology and astrology, and let's I don't even know, dance around the fire naked. I don't know. I've never done that before, but it's a funny joke with some friends. But when I'm in that circle, then I'm like, but I also want to talk about Jesus and that he's so great and cool and forgiveness and all the power behind that belief system. It's I want to have both, but I constantly feel like I'm in this teeter-totter, and that sucks. And the flipping and flopping back and forth is so exhausting and tiring. All I really want is to be able to feel accepted and to be identified as who I am, not just having to fit into one side or the other. I also, if you're a religious exile, you may relate to this, that you feel like you walk on eggshells around people, that you have to kind of figure out what do they believe before you can say what you believe. If you find out that they're super Christian, then you're like, oh, okay, I got to keep my mouth shut about reincarnation and mediums and psychics and aliens and all these different things that don't fit into that paradigm. And then if you're, talking to people who maybe have religious trauma or are the religious survivors, then you're like, oh, okay, I got to keep my mouth shut. Do not talk about God or Jesus or Savior or forgiveness or any of that, because those might be buzzwords for them and it might set them off and trigger them. So I got to close my mouth. And I have that experience so much with different people. And it's I just want to be able to speak freely. Once I finally find people that have an open mind and that I can say anything and everything to, I'm like, this is great. I feel so much more free. That leads me into what religious exiles need. They need to feel accepted and understood for being different or wanting to explore outside the box, to feel this sense of peace and settledness internally, to have a supportive community and loved ones that are willing to hear them out and willing to have an open mind and that can let them talk about these things if they want, or that won't judge them, shame them, or criticize them, if they have these certain beliefs. Religious exiles need to have the confidence that they're different and that that's okay. There's nothing inherently wrong with them. They're not bad. And that, the exploration process is a season, it's an inquiry, and again, that's okay. They also need resources to help guide them toward their truth. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when I get through the steps that you can take to help yourself. But religious exiles also really need permission to have a strong connection to themselves and to their higher power, regardless of what it looks like, regardless of if it fits in the box, regardless of if it's perfect, regardless of if it's the same way that Sally, who does every church event imaginable and who has this really grounded and rooted belief system and an unwavering faith, regardless of if it looks like hers. You need permission to have this connection, even though it might look differently than others around you. Religious exiles, when you get what you need, then you can start thriving more. You can feel more connected to that inner part of yourself and have this permission to be yourself rather than a block and feeling like you have to be somebody you're not. So let's get into the steps to take if you are a religious exile to support yourself. The first one, like with anything, is acknowledgement. Being able to identify that you fit into this bucket and that this is maybe your experience is the first step to empowerment. The second step, I would say, is to let go of any shame, guilt, or judgment that you have of yourself or that you think that others have of you. That's not going to help anybody. If you're stuck in a cycle of shame and guilt and judgment and criticism, you're in a lower vibration. You are not even going to be able to explore higher possibilities or to feel connected to higher self or to higher power, to God, because you will be stuck in that darkness with a cloud over you. Okay, so letting go of all of that. If you need help with that, somebody like me who works with people to let go of negative emotions like that could be helpful. You can schedule with me at findinghomehealing.com on my website, or if you have a trusted therapist or other coach that you can bring this up with and talk about it with, but to just really let go of those negative emotions, even embarrassment, or that might come up too. Third step to take if you're a religious exile is to begin to reconcile your differences between what you used to believe and what you currently believe or would like to believe. So what I mean by that is if you're the kind who maybe grew up with a religion or a belief system, and as an adult you want something different for yourself, or you have other beliefs to integrate, I would love to invite you during this step to really take an inventory of what that is. Like, get really clear on what were your values before and what are they now? What did you believe before? What do you believe now? And can those two things exist simultaneously at the same time? Can you give yourself permission to hold two ideas together at the same time? It's a skill and a gift that you can give yourself, that you can develop and become stronger in over time. That's something that I also developed to help me be this observer that I was talking about. Okay, the fourth step is find trusted people or sources to talk to about your ideas and feelings. If you're inside your own head and you're living in a vacuum, that's not going to help you. So I would suggest that you kind of feel out if there's anybody in your world or your community, friends, family, even at your church, people that are open-minded, or if you have other communities where you can bring this up to somebody and actually just dialogue about it. It can feel really supportive to feel like you're not alone and that you are allowed to express yourself. You're allowed to be different. You're allowed to say what's on your mind and what you feel without being judged. This might even look like a therapist or a coach or somebody else that you have that you trust to be able to just dialogue about it and, spit ideas out and, go through that process. Okay, the fifth and final step that I would suggest to support you in this phase, in this bucket, is researching resources that can keep guiding you toward the light and truth. This would be things like books or YouTube videos, documentaries, podcasts, different types of healers, maybe church sermons. There's so much out there. There's so many resources, even on social media. Like, as much as I am not a supporter and a fan of social media, there are some good things out there that you can find. In my personal process of exploring this bucket of being a religious exile, I looked into different people like Abraham Hicks, who is a channel, and the woman is channeling this entity that is, existing elsewhere. And maybe some of you think that that's scary and that's the devil and that's evil. That's okay. It's information. It's like, okay, maybe this woman is absolutely bat crazy and out of her mind, but there are some of the things that she says that are pretty profound. Or somebody like Bashar, if you've ever heard of him, he's channeled by a man named Daryl Anka, and he has a lot of videos and like a whole library of being able to channel this being. And it's, again, even if you think or believe that it's crazy, if you're in exile and you're exploring and you have an open mind, you might want to go check that out, because he says some really helpful things that have really helped me on my path. There's things like that can really help you. There's, again, books and YouTube videos. There's sermons from different churches that I've gone to that have even helped me be able to have a better relationship to Christianity, which has helped me in my process. Okay, so the 5 steps: acknowledgement, letting go of any guilt, shame, or judgment or criticism, beginning to reconcile your differences of how you used to be to how you are now, finding trusted people and sources to get to talk to about your ideas and beliefs, and then researching those resources to support you and guiding you toward the light and the truth. This podcast, the Finding Home Healing podcast, might be another supportive place for you to come, to feel heard and seen, to feel like you're not alone, because I am also the religious exile type, and I'll be talking about all things from all spectrums and all topics. So you might find that you really, really fit in here to this community. Okay, so we have gone through in depth the religious exile experience, what it is, what it's like to be one. Hopefully by now you are either resonating with this and feel like, oh yeah, that's definitely me, I'm going to take action on these steps, or maybe you realize it's not you and maybe you fit into a different bucket. Totally cool. There's other podcast episodes to support you. I would steer you toward the belief bucket overview episode or the religious survivor episode, if that's more where you feel like you fit, or the soul seeker episode where maybe you would fit more in that bucket. Regardless, I hope this has been supportive to you today. I hope you are feeling validated, heard, seen, supported, loved, and not alone, and that you are able to find a closer path or more connection to that light and that power within yourself. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you in the next one.